The rope bit into her wrist so hard that her hands had already gone numb. Yet the pain kept climbing higher, crawling up her arms, tearing into her shoulders, and settling deep inside her chest like a scream that had nowhere to go. May Delaney was 24 years old, and she was tied like an animal behind the circus tent, her ankles pulled tight to her wrist, her body bent into a shape no human body was meant to hold. Her breath came out in short, broken sounds, each one sharper than the last, sweat streaking down her face as the summer sun of Kansas burned straight into her skin. This was not part of the show. It was the back lot where the canvas flapped and the wagons blocked the view from the road. Out here, a man could do awful things and call it discipline. The crowd had already left. The laughter was gone. The music had stopped. The last lanterns were being put out, and the last coins were being counted. Only the workers and the worn-out performers were still awake. Only the ropes remained. If you've ever seen someone get hurt and wished you could rewind time, stay with me. May tried to shift her weight, just an inch, but the knot was built to punish movement. Whoever tied it knew exactly where pain lives. Her vision blurred, and the words slipped out before she could stop them. Please, that hurts. The man standing in front of her did not flinch. Virgil Sloat, the leader of the traveling show, watched her like a butcher watches meat, calm, cold, certain that what lay in front of him belonged to him. You should have listened. His voice was low, almost bored, like tightening a saddle. Around them, the back lot of the camp sat quiet. Empty wagons, folded canvas, a wooden platform still stained with dust from the performance she had just finished minutes earlier. May's body trembled as another wave of pain surged through her. Her wrists throbbed, her ankles burned, her shoulders screamed. This was how he taught lessons. This was how he made sure no one forgot who was in charge. She wasn't screaming for the crowd anymore. There was no crowd. She was begging because she was breaking. Virgil leaned closer, his shadow falling across her face. Hurts now, he said softly. Next time, you'll remember sooner. May swallowed hard, tears spilling down the sides of her face and disappearing into the dirt. She had refused him. That was her crime. Not stealing, not lying, just saying no. And for that, she was tied up in the open heat, punished where the rest of the performers could see and learn. She didn't know how long she could hold this position. She didn't know how much longer her joints would last. She didn't know if anyone would hear her before something snapped. What she didn't know was that a rancher was riding past the edge of the camp at that exact moment, leading a tired horse and hearing a sound that didn't belong to any show. The question was simple and terrifying. If he stopped, would it save her? Or would it make her suffering even worse? Hank McAllister had heard a lot of sounds in his 48 years on the plains, but that sound made him stop. It was not music, it was not laughter, it was not applause drifting from a finished show. It was a voice breaking under pain. Short and tight, like someone trying not to scream, Hank slowed his horse and turned his head toward the back of the camp. He wasn't looking for trouble. He had just come to drop off hay and collect a small payment. The kind of errand that never makes a story. The show needed feed for horses, and Hank knew the road like he knew his own hands, but that sound didn't belong to any performance he'd ever heard. He stepped off the trail and walked past folded canvas and empty benches. The smell of dust and sweat hung heavy in the air. The show was over, but something else was still happening. Then he saw her. Not in the main ring, not in front of a crowd. She was hidden behind canvas and wagons, like a problem they didn't want seen. The girl was tied up on a low wooden platform behind the main tent. Her wrists were bound tight to her ankles, pulled so close her back bowed against the strain. Her face was pale under the sun, jaw clenched. Eyes glassy with pain she was trying to swallow. Hank stopped a few steps away. He didn't rush in. Men who rushed in usually made things worse. Hank wasn't brave in a loud way. He was brave in the way that costs you later. He looked at the rope first, old habit. Ranchers notice rope the way preachers notice sin. The knots were done wrong, too tight. Twisted inward, made to bite when the body moved, not meant for safety, not meant for practice, meant to hurt. Right there. Hank knew this wasn't a show problem. It was a cruelty problem. He noticed the marks next. Dark bruises beneath the dirt. Old ones, new ones layered on top. Her skin told a story before she ever opened her mouth. The man standing over her noticed Hank then. Virgil Sloat turned with a smile that never reached his eyes. Men like that always smiled when they were already sure nobody would stop them. Show's done, Virgil said. You can move along. Hank didn't answer right away. He crouched slightly and looked closer at the girl's wrists. The rope had already cut into the skin. Another few minutes and she might not be able to feel her hands. She hurt? Hank asked, calm and even. Virgil snorted. She's fine. The girl tried to shift again, and a sharp breath escaped her before she could stop it. Hank heard it. He always heard things like that. That's not fine, Hank said. Virgil stepped closer, lowering his voice. This is my business. Hank stood up slowly. He was not a big talker. He was a man who fixed fences, healed animals, and walked away when walking away was smart. But there were moments when walking away followed you forever. He looked from the rope to the bruises to the girl's face. She wasn't acting. She was enduring. Hank placed one hand near the knife on his belt, not drawing it yet, just resting there. Untie her, he said. Virgil laughed, sharp and ugly. And what if I don't? If you're listening right now, type one word in the comments, stop, because this is where it turns. That was the moment everything tilted, because Hank knew and Virgil didn't, that two of his men were already moving in from behind, and the next few seconds would decide whether this ended quietly or ended in blood. Virgil did not answer Hank right away. He smiled the way men do when they think fear is working. Behind Hank, boots shifted in the dirt. Two men from the show stepped closer, slow and loose, hands ready. They were used to people backing down. Hank felt them before he turned. Years of working cattle taught him how trouble sounds when it moves. He spoke without raising his voice. I said untie her. Virgil laughed again, louder this time. You hearing things, old man? May tried to lift her head, but the rope dragged her back down. Her breath hitched. Hank heard it, and something in his chest tightened. He moved fast then. Not wild, not angry, just certain. When the first man reached for him, Hank sidestepped and slammed an elbow into his jaw. The man hit the dirt like a dropped sack. He stayed there, stunned and coughing, with the air knocked out of him, dust puffed up around them. The second man grabbed Hank from behind, and Hank drove his boot heel back into the shin. When the grip loosened, Hank hooked the wrist and rolled him forward into the wagon wheel. Not pretty, but it worked. There was a sharp cry, and the grip broke. Virgil's smile vanished. His hand went to his belt. Hank's knife flashed, not swinging, not threatening, just visible. A promise more than a weapon. Enough, Hank said. For a second, nobody moved. The camp was silent, except for May's ragged breathing and the creak of rope under strain. He kept his eyes on the hands behind him while he moved to May. He knelt, steady and calm, and cut the rope at her wrists first. A small pistol had fallen in the grass during the scuffle, and the scary part was, May had no idea if she was about to be helped or hurt again. One of the men must have dropped it when he went down. May snatched it with shaking fingers and kept it low, pointed at nobody, but ready if Virgil rushed her. The tension snapped loose, and she cried out, not from pain this time, but from relief, so sharp it hurt. He freed her ankles next. She didn't stand yet, but she stayed conscious, and that alone was a kind of victory. Her body collapsed forward, and Hank caught her before she hit the boards. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders like it was the most natural thing in the world. Virgil stepped forward. You touch her. You answer to me. Hank stood. May held close, her weight light and shaking in his arms. You already answered, Hank said. May looked up at him then. Her eyes were wide, wet, and full of disbelief. She wasn't grateful yet. She was still afraid. Hank carried her toward his horse. No hurry, no run, just walking like a man who had already made his choice. Behind them, Virgil cursed and spat dirt. Hank didn't turn around, because some moments, once past, never come back. If you're enjoying this story so far, take a second to subscribe. It helps keep these stories alive and coming. And while you listen, pour yourself a cup of tea or coffee, settle in, and tell me this. What time is it where you are right now? And where are you listening from? Because what happened next on that ride away from the camp would change both of their lives in ways neither of them could see yet. And Virgil Sloat was not the kind of man who let things go. The ride away from the camp was quiet at first. Quiet can feel safe, but it can also be the calm before a man like Virgil comes knocking. May sat in front of Hank, wrapped in his coat, her hands shaking as the horse moved through tall grass toward the river. Every step sent a small jolt through her body, and she flinched without meaning to. Hank kept one arm steady around her, not holding tight, just enough so she knew she would not fall. "You don't owe me a word," he said. "But if something hurts, say it." May nodded, though her throat felt locked. The night air cooled her skin, and with it came the ache. Her wrists throbbed, her ankles burned, her shoulders felt loose, like they might slip right out of place if she moved wrong. They reached the ranch just before dark. The place smelled like river water and cut hay. No banners, no music, just honest work and quiet. A low house, a corral, a line of cottonwoods along the Arkansas River. Nothing fancy, just solid. Hank lifted her down slowly and guided her inside. He poured water, set out a chair, and fetched a clean cloth. He worked the way men do when they have spent a lifetime fixing things. Quiet, careful, no speeches. May watched him from the chair. She had been touched so many times without kindness that she braced herself without knowing it. Hank noticed and stepped back. "I'm not going to crowd you," he said. "You're safe here." Safe. The word sounded strange in her ears. Later that night, she told him some of it. Not everything, just enough. How Virgil used the rope. How no was never allowed to mean no. How every lesson came with pain meant to be remembered. Hank listened without interrupting. His jaw tightened, but he did not curse or pound the table. When she finished, he nodded once. "That man will come," he said. "I've buried enough good people to know what happens when nobody steps in." Hank shook his head. "And I don't bury another one if I can help it." May's stomach dropped. "I know. And when he does," Hank continued, "he won't take you back." Outside, a horse snorted. Far off, a wagon creaked on the road. Life went on. Unaware. The next morning brought dust on the horizon. Riders showed up. Not 3, but 5 hard men. The kind who moved like they had done this before. One of them leading with a grin May recognized, even at a distance. Virgil Sloat had not let it go. Hank stepped out onto the porch and rested his hand near his belt. Hank lifted his revolver, not at a man, but at the dirt 10 feet in front of Virgil. "Quick question for you. Do you think a warning shot stops trouble or invites it?" The shot cracked the air and kicked up dust. Nobody laughed after that. He did not aim at a man. He did not shout. He stood where May could see him through the window. Virgil rode up and laughed. One of his men carried a shotgun across his saddle like a threat made visible. "You made this hard," he said, "but it ends today." May felt the old fear rise, the kind that folds your chest inward. She stood anyway. Her legs shook, but she stood beside Hank. She held that small pistol she grabbed earlier. Both hands tight, muzzle down until it needed to rise. Her voice still trembled, but her feet did not move. "I don't belong to you," she said. Virgil sneered. "We'll see." Hank did not move. He did not look away, because the next choice would decide whether this ended with words or ended with blood. Virgil did not get what he came for that day, and he didn't leave proud either. The standoff ended without anyone getting hit. But the message was clear. Hank was not moving. May was not going back. And the ground beneath Virgil's boots was no longer his. Virgil spat one last threat and rode off with his men. One of his men kept staring at May, like he finally understood what he had been helping to do. Virgil noticed, and the anger on his face looked like fear trying to pretend it was power. Dust trailed behind them like something already dead. May sank onto the porch step, her knees weak, the fight draining out of her all at once. Hank sat beside her, close enough to steady her if she fell, far enough to let her breathe. That night, the ranch felt different. The walls were the same, the wind sounded the same in the cottonwoods, but something inside May had shifted. For the first time in a long time, she slept without rope marks cutting into her skin. Days turned into weeks. Hank rode into Dodge City and spoke to the sheriff anyway, not to beg for help, but to put Virgil's name on record. Men like Virgil hate paper trails more than they hate bullets. May healed, slowly. Some mornings her joints ached so bad she had to sit before standing. Some nights the memories came back sharp and loud. Hank never rushed her. He never asked for more than she was ready to give. He taught her how to mend a fence, how to calm a skittish horse, how to read the weather by the sky alone. She taught him how to laugh again, quiet and surprised, like a man who had forgotten the sound. Love did not arrive all at once. It grew. It showed up in small choices, in safety, in respect. In the simple fact that she was never tied again. May stayed not because she was rescued, but because she chose to. Hank loved her not because she was broken, but because she was strong enough to stand back up. And that is where the story leaves its mark. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you peace. Sometimes it brings trouble straight to your door. But sometimes it gives someone their life back. So here's the question worth sitting with. If you heard a voice breaking behind a tent, would you stop? Or would you keep walking and tell yourself it was none of your business? If this story stayed with you, tap like and subscribe. It helps keep these old roads and hard choices alive. And before you go, I would love to know this. Where are you listening from right now? And what time is it there? Maybe pour yourself another cup of tea, settle back, and think about the last time someone stood up for you. Because sometimes one choice made in a quiet moment can change two lives forever.